Okay, you saw in my thumbnail a sculpture that represents that there are two sides to every story. And in this story, the true version is quite different from the legendary story that I told you in part one. First of all, uh, the main guy was a chap named Francis Van Wie, which sounds like Francis Van Winkle, but he was a Dutchman. And he was not the handsome chap that is portrayed in the song or the stories about the Ding Dong Daddy. But the Ding Dong Daddy of the D Car line, hero of many stories, and not only that, a song that was quite famous in its day, which we'll play you a little bit of right now.
I'm a corn pone popper and an apple knocker. You ought to see me strut. I'm a mama-loving man and I just left Mary. She's a big blonde baby from Peanut Prairie. I'm a ding-dong daddy from Duma now, and you ought to see me do my stuff.
Okay, but let's go back to the story of the real Francis Van Wie. First of all, he is not. He never was a bell ringer. That's the funny part of this. He was a streetcar conductor, not on a cable car line at all, but a reporter for a newspaper in San Francisco, kind of made the story up. You know, there was a statement by Ernest Hemingway, don't let the facts stay in the way of a good story. So he named the guy the Ding Dong Daddy, and he had him as the conductor of a cable car, which was, of course, was not, well, not of course, but it just wasn't true. Now, the truth was that at the time, uh, a song by Judy Garland was very popular. It was called Clang, Clang, Clang went the trolley, ding, ding, ding went the bell. Well, anyway, it was a very good song, very popular. And so that's why that's why the guy who wrote the story called him the Ding Dong Daddy. And Louis Armstrong had a bit earlier made a song, recorded a song, nothing to do with the Ding Dong Daddy of San Francisco, but he had a song called the Ding Dong Daddy of Dumas. And we're going to give you a few words of that song right now. Ding Dong Daddy from Dumas, ought to see me do the stuff. Ding Dong Down, Down, Ding Dong Daddy from Dumas. By Louis Armstrong, who's one of my favorite trumpet players and singers. Okay. Well, here's what really happened. He was a conductor at the back end of a streetcar, okay? And many women got on the streetcar, and they were not beauties by any means. They were usually older women in their 50s, and almost all of them described Van Wie as a silly but lovable old fool. Well, why did these people marry him? Well, according to the Ding Dong Daddy, he had a good job as a streetcar conductor, a dependable paycheck, and he proposed to a lot of women. He proposed to many of the women on his streetcar line, and only a small percentage said yes. But he said he loved them, he would take care of them, and so as a result, he got legally married to quite a few women, and he was a chap who liked to flirt, an old geezer. By the way, this is his picture. Look at this. not exactly the same as in the earlier legend. He's really just a fat older guy, and one of his wives described him as a real card, a fun guy in the parlor, a gentleman on the street, but a beast to me in the home. And she testified at trial that they were married only 2 months when he became insanely jealous and accused her of making love to other men, and he beat her. And then she said she was totally innocent, but she immediately left him. So that was the testimony of one of his wives. But the others actually did support him. And at his trial, they joked around with him, smiled, had their picture taken, and said, "Hey, he was really a good guy. He was a lot of fun, but he gave me a lot of excuses because he was always gone. I didn't see too much of him." Well, what were those excuses? Hey, they were very funny excuses. One, he dressed up in a officer's uniform. Can you believe this? Huh. The chubby guy dressed up as a high Navy officer with lots of gold braid and stuff, and said he was on secret missions to determine what really happened at Pearl Harbor and had to be gone for a few months. To another wife, he said he was an FBI undercover agent. And this one is even funnier. He had to pose as a married man for his assignment. And the rumor she'd heard about him being married to someone else was just a fake marriage that had been arranged by the FBI. Well, maybe I'll tell you about a few more of his lies, but he was a very clever liar. And as I said, he was a streetcar conductor. Well, despite this, as the trial progressed, some big shots, including the mayor of San Francisco and Ben Swig, who actually was later a friend of mine and owned big hotels, and well, I won't name all the others on the list, but a lot of people from San Francisco, really big shots, added their name to character reference. Of course, they never knew the guy before he was charged, but they also put up the money for his bail. So that was a true story. And a guy called Lurie, who owned hotels, gave him a free stay in his hotel near the courthouse during his trial with room and board, and got nice publicity for that. Well, the prosecutor at the trial thought he had a very good case. He showed that the ding dong daddy really had married and was still legally married to 14 different women, which of course is bigamy. But the reporters and many people of the time took the attitude, well, boys will be boys, and come on, this guy just wanted to seduce women, and he really wasn't bad to any of them. He never took their money. He lied to them, but they were kind of fun lies, nice fantasy lies, and he was really quite a jolly old fellow. But here came the terrible evidence, the worst thing at the trial. The prosecutor showed that maybe his 12th or 13th wife was his own daughter. Oh my God. That didn't go over very well with anyone until the defense came and said, hey, one of his many wives had a child by somebody else long before he came along. And so, although, just like in the Woody Allen case, it was technically his adopted daughter, when he married her and had sex with her, of course, never had a child, she was not his real daughter. She just always liked him and he'd always liked her, and that was his defense. Well, what can I say? The defense was on other things. He was a sentimental old fool who really loved all his wives. He meant them no harm, and he should be freed because his trial is an example of a moral lesson to today's youth. Well, it didn't work. He got a sentence of 10 years. 10 years in a rather unpleasant prison called San Quentin, which you've probably seen and heard of in many movies. And this happened, the real date was April 12th, 1945, the day that Franklin Roosevelt died. That was when Van Wie went into San Quentin prison. After that, he and his wives almost immediately petitioned for a release on parole. And he was described as an elderly man of good intentions and just kind of a prankster. Well, he'd lost his job as a streetcar conductor, so guess what? After less than a year, he was released, and he became a dishwasher at Matchek's Waffle and Cocktail Lounge. Interesting. And while he was working there, it was the last days of his streetcar, and shortly after that, he went to, this was in the fictional story too, he went to his own previous trial judge that had sentenced him with a request that the trial judge, his name was Kaufman, marry him to his new love. Not a beauty by any means. I'll show you a picture of her. Well, here it is. Well, we'll send you a better picture than this. In any event, the judge called the wife in chambers and lectured her and said, this chap, don't marry him. He'll probably have 3 or 4 other wives after you, and maybe at the same time. Do not marry him. But she insisted, and the judge eventually married him. What a strange story, huh? Strange story indeed. Now, as it turned out, I don't have the exact story on divorce with this 15th wife, but he did marry 3 more times. And he died in 1973. And once again, I'm going to give you a much better picture. Well, maybe this will be the picture that turns up on your site. This is when he went into prison. But he died in 1973, and many years later, a hit song that we're going to play you a little bit of right now.
Well, the ding-dong daddy of the big line had a thing called the ladies' old cheated time. He reaped a little more than he could sow of the pleasures the Mormons in Utah know. He could not restrain himself when he saw a nice caboose. Say ding! Ding! I said dong! Dong! That ding-dong daddy hit his 16 women wrong.
Was written about him, and he's been immortalized, although very few people know the true story, which you now know, both the legend and the true story of the ding-dong daddy of cable car number D.